Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why, and how of the newspaper analysis from the UPSC perspective. Today we have taken up important articles from the Hindu newspaper dated 10th April 2023. Topics which we are going to discuss today are displayed on your screen. Let's begin the discussion. Now let's start our session with our first article which appeared on page number 12 in the Hindu newspaper. Context of this article is that Uttar Pradesh State Prison Department has recently constituted a team of Indian Police Service officers who will inspect prisons and submit their report to the state government. This development comes after it was found that high-profile crime in the state is often linked to accused persons lodged inside prisons, with some jail officials acting hand in glove with criminals. Now, prison reforms are one of the important themes in UPSC GS paper 2. It comes under important aspects of governance, transparency, and accountability. Also, government policies and intervention for development in various sectors and issues arising of their design and implementation. Now let us look into the previous year questions related to this theme. UPSC has asked these questions because in the case of Shatrughan Chauhan versus Union of India 2014, Supreme Court delivered a landmark judgment on death penalty, holding that an excessive delay in carrying out the death sentence was an essential mitigating factor in plea for commutation. Now, as we have seen multiple times, here we can see a direct relation between current affairs and UPSC questions, both pre as well as mains. So here, again, a gentle reminder for giving importance to current affairs. So in this discussion, we will be taking up why we need prison reform, what are the challenges associated with it, and way forward. So let's start our discussion. So let's understand about prison administration in India. Now, prison is a state subject under list 2nd of the 7th schedule to the Constitution of India. So what does it mean? That the management and administration of prisons falls exclusively in the domain of state governments and is governed by the Prisons Act 1894 and prison manuals of the respective state governments. Also, you should remember that it is an important component of the criminal justice system in India. So here, one may get the doubt that then what are the other components of criminal justice system? So there are 4 of them. First is legislature, that's by parliament. Second is enforcement, that is done by police. Then third is adjudication, for that we have courts. And the last is corrections, and for that we have prisons, community facilities, etc. Now let us understand what is the need for prison reforms in India. Prison reform is necessary to ensure that human rights of prisoners are protected and their prospects for social reintegration are increased. Why? Because prisons are not isolated from the society and prison health is public health. The vast majority of people committed to prison eventually return to wider society. Thus, it is not in vain that prisons have been referred to as reservoirs of disease in various contexts. Thereby, their physical and mental health has to be taken into consideration. Further, in Ramamurthy versus State of Karnataka 1997 case, Supreme Court identified 9 issues concerning prisons, such as overcrowding, trials being delayed, the torture and ill treatment of prisoners, neglect of health and hygiene, insubstantial food, and inadequate clothing. So, now let us understand these issues in detail. So, the first issue is under trial prisoners. Under trial are those who are waiting to appear in court after being charged with a crime. Because their guilt has not been established, they cannot be considered guilty. So, according to the latest available data compiled by National Crime Records Bureau, that is NCRB, for year 2020, about 76% of all prison inmates in the country were under trials, of which 68% were either illiterate or school dropouts. Among the under trials, 20% were Muslims, while about 73% were Dalits, tribals, or OBCs. And most of them are poor and illiterate. They are unable to furnish bail for their release, are not made aware about their legal rights. That is, right to bail, right to free legal aid. Second problem is colonial legislation. Now, why this is an issue? Because prisons in India are still governed by Prisons Act 1894, and currently we are living in 2023. So basically, a colonial legislation which treat prisoners as subpar citizens is guiding our prisons. So why this is an issue? Because it provides legal justification for retributive punishment. Now what is this retributive punishment? It is a form of punishment that is based on the principle of justice, that those who commit wrongdoing should receive punishment proportionate to the severity of their offense. So basically, it is often associated with concept of an eye for an eye. So Prisons Act 1894 provides legal justification for retributive punishment as opposed to rehabilitative punishment. Now, what is rehabilitative punishment? It is an approach to punishment that focuses on the rehabilitation and reform of offenders with the goal of helping them reintegrate into society as a law abiding citizens. Also, this act is highly castious and has not changed much since the British drafted it. For example, some jail manuals continue to focus on purity as prescribed by the caste system and assign work in prison based on prisoners' caste and identity. Next problem is torture and abuse. The prisoners are subjected to the harshest form of torture and made to perform heavy labor for no pay. Also, the number of people dying in custody as a result of abuse and torture has been steadily rising. Above that, prisoners who are women are more vulnerable to abuse. Next problem is overcrowding and lack of basic facilities. Now, most of the jails in India are overcrowded and lack basic facilities. Now, as per the latest data of National Crime Records Bureau, over 5.5 lakh prisoners are lodged in Indian jails against a prisoner lodging capacity of 4.4 lakh. Also, most Indian prisoners were built in colonial era and are in constant need of repair, and part of them are uninhabitable for long periods. Next is neglect of basic requirements. Basically, the conditions for prisoners in India are extremely unsanitary. There are inadequate medical facilities and the diet has not changed in years. Another issue is many prisons in India are understaffed, which can lead to poor conditions and lack of security. Now, according to the findings of Indian Justice Report 2019, this is an initiative of Tata Trust. According to it, Indian prisons are understaffed by at least 33%, with the highest vacancies found at the officer and correctional staff levels. So, what is the impact of this? This has increased the workload of the staff and is having an impact on the correctional aspect of imprisonment, leading to poor conditions and lack of security. Next challenge is imprisonment and poverty. How? Because imprisonment disproportionately affects individuals and families living in poverty. When an income generating member of the family is imprisoned and the rest of the family must adjust to this loss of income. Even when released, often with no prospects of employment, former prisoners are generally subject to socio-economic exclusion and are thus vulnerable to an endless cycle of poverty, marginalization, criminality, and imprisonment. Thus, imprisonment contributes directly to the impoverishment of the prisoner and his family with a significant cross-generational effect. Now, what is cross-generational effect? It refers to the impact or influence that one generation has on other, often within the context of cultural, societal, or familial dynamics. So, this is the positive side of generational effect. On the other hand, negative generational effects can occur when harmful behaviors, beliefs, or traumas are transmitted from one generation to another. It's better to understand this with the help of example. That for instance, negative attitude or biases held by one generation can be passed down and perpetuated in younger generations. So what will happen? This will lead to societal challenges such as discrimination, prejudice, or intolerance. Half of the crime in our society is because of this cross-generational effect. So imprisonment and poverty is leading to significant cross-generational effect of society by creating future victims and reducing future potential economic performance. So these are the issues related to prison administration in India. Now, having seen challenges related to prison administration in India, let's have a look on some of the United Nations standards and norms that relate directly to prison reforms. So these are norms related to prison reforms. And among all these, one of the important covenant is Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Why? Because it provides some basic principles of administration of justice, like no one should be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment. Second is everyone has the right to life, liberty and security of person. Third one is no one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest, detention or exile. Fourth one is everyone charged with a penal offense has the right to be presumed innocent until proved guilty according to law in a public trial, at which he has all the guarantees necessary for his defense. So as we have seen, UN covenants related to prison reforms. We also should know the two most important articles of our constitution relevant in this regard. First is Article 39A. Now what does Article 39A? It provides that state is required to offer free legal aid to accused inmates, both inside and outside of prison, who are unable to hire a lawyer because they lack the resources to defend themselves in court against the allegations leveled against them. Second important article is Article 21. Now, Supreme Court has ruled in several cases that Article 21 of the Constitution covers the right to medical care, in addition to guaranteeing right to personal liberty. So, Article 21 of the Constitution forbids any inhuman, cruel, or degrading treatment of anyone, whether they are citizen or foreigner. So, these are the important articles related to prison reforms. Now, having seen the challenges associated with prison reforms, now let's understand various recommendations on prison reforms by multiple committees and way forward. First in this is All India Prison Service. Now, All India Committee on Jail Reforms 1980 to 1983. This is also known as Justice A.N. Mullah Committee. This committee recommended to develop an All India Prison Service as a professional career service with appropriate job requirements, sound training, and proper promotional avenues. Second suggestion is National Prison Commission and Open Prisons. Same committee, that is Justice A.N. Mullah Committee, also suggested setting up a National Prison Commission as a controlling body to bring out modernization of prisons in India. It also recommended the government to set up and develop open prisons in each state and UTs and life convicts with good behavior to be transferred to semi-open and open prisons. So here, I think you should understand what is open prisons. Open prisons have relatively less stringent rules as compared to controlled jails. So open prisons, fundamental rule is that it has minimal security. Next suggestion is to have special fast-track courts. And this was recommended by Justice Amitva Roy Committee, which was set up in year 2018 by the Supreme Court. For what? To deal exclusively with petty offences which have been pending for more than 5 years. Next is personal recognized bond. First, this bond was recommended by same Justice Amitva Roy Committee and it advocated for the release of accused on an PR bond. That is, if they are charged with minor offences and granted bail but are unable to secure security. Next suggestion is establishment of research and development wing. This was recommended by Draft National Policy on Prison Reforms and Correctional Administration 2007. Next suggestion is gender parity in police force, and this was recommended by Justice Krishna Iyer Committee, which was set up in year 1987. So what this committee recommended? It recommended induction of more women in the police force in view of their special role in tackling women and child offenders. Last but not the least is Model Prison Manual 2016. Union Home Ministry have developed a Model Prison Manual 2016 in alignment with UN resolutions. So all states must implement it in its letter and spirit. So these are all recommendations on prison reforms. Though there are various steps taken by government for prison reforms in India, like e-prison project, which provides a centralized approach for recording and managing prisoner information and generating different kinds of reports. Another is web application launched by the National Legal Service Authority to provide the under trial prisoners with free legal services. So these are few initiatives, but much more distance we need to cover for making watershed reforms in this regard. So for this, the approach toward prison reforms should be to rehabilitate and reform the inmates rather than reactive to avoid subjecting people to unnecessary trauma and confinement. And for this, state must make sure that prisons serve as a pathway for those who are not born criminals or criminals by nature to reintegrate into society. Now, our next discussion is based on this editorial, which appeared on page 6 in the Hindu newspaper. This editorial is critical analysis of the IT Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethical Code Amendment Rules 2023, and specifically to the rules which are dealing with the issues of fake news. This write-up sheds light on the recently added provisions and argue that how these rules are in contravention to the fundamental right of free speech and expression as enshrined in Article 19 of the Indian Constitution. Also, this theme is quite important as government policies and interventions for the development in various sectors and issues arising out of their design and implementation is important theme under GS paper 2, and awareness in the IT field is quite important under GS paper 3. Also, UPSC has been asking questions based on important aspects related to IT. Like this question based on use of internet by non-state actors came in year 2050. Another question based on vital factors related to the implementation of information and communication technology came in year 2019. So with this we can see that this theme is quite important. Also, rules and regulation which form part of the current developments also form an important theme for UPSC prelims examination. Like this question based on solid waste management rules came in year 2019. This question based on Industrial Employment Rules 2018 came in year 2019. This question based on Extended Producer Responsibility, which is a quite important aspect of E-Waste Management and Handling Rules 2011. This question came in year 2019. So with this, we can see that rules and regulations form an important theme for UPSC prelims examination. So here, in this discussion, we will look into what is fake news, how it poses a challenge, then we'll see what are the regulations against fake news in India and how these rules pose a challenge, and we'll end our discussion with a way forward. So let's start our discussion. So now let us understand what is fake news and how it is different from misinformation. Though there is no official definition of fake news, but it can be defined on the basis of its occurrence and repercussions. Now, fake news is an inaccurate, sometimes sensationalistic report that is created to gain attention, mislead, deceive, or damage a reputation. Unlike misinformation, which is inaccurate because a reporter has confused facts. See, fake news is created with the intent to manipulate something or someone, and it can spread quickly when it provides disinformation that is aligned with the audience point of view, because such content is not likely to be questioned or discounted. Let's understand the difference between the two with the help of example. So there was an article with a title that government announces mandatory linking of Aadhaar card with social media accounts to curb fake news. Now, this article claims that the Indian government has announced a new policy requiring mandatory linking of Aadhaar with social media accounts in order to combat fake news. However, upon further investigation, it is discovered that there is no credible source or official government statement to support this claim. Now, this article spread through unknown or unverified sources and lacks evidence of its authenticity. So, this is an example of fake news, as it is intentionally fabricated information presented as factual news to mislead readers. Now, there was a social media post which claims that the Indian government has made it mandatory to link Aadhaar with social media accounts to curb fake news. Now, this post has been widely shared and circulated, leading to panic and confusion among the public. However, upon verification, it is revealed that there is no credible official source to confirm this claim. Now, the misinformation may have been unintentionally shared by well meaning individuals who did not verify the information before spreading it. So, this is done intentionally and this is done unintentionally. Now, let's discuss few important implications of fake news. Now, implication is more related to the intention and consequences of spread of fake news. The first in this is conditioning of knowledge. Now, levels of penetration of social media has enabled the spread of fake news as wildfire. In lack of proper authentication check soon, it becomes a validated knowledge, thus helping in creating a wrongly modulated environment against or in favor of anything. The best example of this is that our national anthem being recognized as world best anthem by UNESCO. Another example is mob lynching in Maharashtra's Palghar. Let me tell you how. So there was a post or article on social media claiming involvement of a specific religious or ethnic group in child trafficking, which goes viral on social media. So because of the conditioning, a mob fueled by anger and fear gathers, hunts down individuals from the targeted group and violently lynches them without verifying the authenticity of the news. So the incident results in injuries, loss of life and widespread fear and tension among communities. And later it is revealed that the news was fake. So see how this incident highlights the serious consequence of spreading misinformation. Next implication is polarization and politicization. Now, fake news is being used as a tool by political parties as well as prominent news channels to build a narrative which is suitable to their cause. The end result is again a fabricated environment which often serves as narrow objective. The best example of this is Union Home Ministry used the picture of Spain-Morocco border in its annual report to show that it had installed floodlights in border areas. Now with this you can imagine that how deep this problem is. Another implication is social disharmony, and part of this you have already seen in this example. So fake narratives often creates hatred among communities. This results into incitement of violence. And fake news has also been used to radicalization of youth, which poses threat to national security at various levels. And the very good example of this is use of fake news in Muzaffarnagar riots of 2013 and recent fake videos of migrant workers in Tamil Nadu, which created an atmosphere of fear and stress among the population. So these are the important implications of fake news. So now let's see different regulations related to fake news in India. Now one thing you should know that India does not have a robust and exclusive framework for curbing the menace of the fake news. However, government use different sections under different act to curb this problem. The first in this is use of section 69A of the Information Technology Act 2000. This act has granted itself greater power to strike down any unpalatable content. Also, some provisions of Disaster Management Act 2005. And if you remember, during COVID time, government evoked Epidemic Diseases Act 1897 to regulate the fake news. Next is Indian Penal Code 1860 deals with fake news is specifically causing riots and defamation cases. Then later, government has come up with Information Technology, Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethic Code Rules 2021 to regulate content by online publishers of news and social media intermediaries. And now, recent amendment in this Information Technology, Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code rules have drawn criticism from various experts who term it as an attempt by government to curb the exercise of free speech and expression. So these are different regulations deals with fake news in India. Now, having seen the difference between fake news and misinformation and what are the implications of fake news and regulations, now let's discuss important amendments to Information Technology, Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code Rules 2023. Now, government notified amendments for open, safe, trusted and accountable internet. These amendments lay out a comprehensive framework for online gaming ecosystem and also deals with fact-checking related to online content pertaining to government. The first in this is obligations on part of intermediaries. Now, it has been made obligatory on part of intermediaries to make reasonable effort to not host, publish or share any online game that can cause the user harm or the content that has not been verified as a permissible online game by an online gaming self-regulatory body or bodies designated by the center government. Second is authority of regulatory body. Now, the self-regulatory body will have the authority to inquire and satisfy itself that the online games does not involve wagering on any outcome. Next, amendment rules also cast additional obligations on online gaming intermediaries in relation to online games involving real money. Now, these include the displaying of a mark of verification by the self-regulatory body on such games. Then, informing their users of the policy for withdrawal or refund of deposits, manner of determination and distribution of winnings, fees and other charges payable, obtaining the KYC details of the users, and not giving credit or enabling financing by third parties to the users. Now, amendment rules now also make it obligatory on the intermediaries to not to publish, share or host fake, false or misleading information in respect of any business of the central government. These fake, false or misleading information will identified by the notified fact check unit of central government. So these are the important amendments to Information Technology, Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code 2023. Now, let's discuss few important concerns about these amendments. The first in this is, it is in contravention to safe harbor protections in section 79 of the IT Act. Basically, this act allows intermediaries to avoid liabilities for what third parties post on their website. Now, under new amendment, intermediaries are liable for this. Second is, these notified amendments can bypass section 69A of the IT Act 2000, which elucidates the procedure to issue takedown orders. Also, according to author, a threat to remove a platform's immunity for content that is flagged by a government unit would create a chilling effect on the right to speech and expression, that is Article 19 on online platforms. So these are the concerns related to recent amendments. Now let us discuss few challenges in curbing fake news in India. First in this is regulation versus rights conundrum. Now, flagging of fake news often gets entangled between debate of intention. Like here, government trying to regulate this problem with the help of new amendment 2023 because it will be helpful to maintain tranquility and order. And on the other side, critics are raising concern and term it as an attempt of curbing free speech. So this shows the regulation versus rights conundrum. Next is low digital literacy. Now, as per India Inequality Report 2022, around 70% of the population has poor or no digital connectivity. Now, such a low level of digital literacy acts as a barrier in verification and authenticity of the news. Because here, news spread even before verification process can be initiated. Next is that there is no dedicated framework. Now, lack of robust and exclusive framework has affected the efforts in curbing fake news at every stages. For example, insufficient infrastructure for verification, no penalties, etc. all have contributed in flourishing of this trend. Next is inherent nature of ICT. Now here, anonymity of content creator poses greatest challenge in front of the regulatory bodies as well as intermediaries to track and address the issue of fake news. So these are few important challenges in curbing fake news in India. Now let's discuss few futuristic solutions to solve problem of fake news in India. And this entailed involvement of all the stakeholders in this loop. And first in this is user. So digital literacy of users about verification and authentication of any published facts or reports should be promoted. Also sensitization of publishers and content creators about the impacts and repercussions of the fake news and its propagation should be done. Another stakeholder is intermediaries. These should be encouraged to formulate policy and actions in tracking and removing fake news. Another stakeholder is government. So government should strengthen regulations and their application, which is of utmost importance. Fact check mechanisms should be made robust and effective. Also, transparency in identification and regulation should be adopted to address the concerns of various stakeholders. So a dedicated portal can be developed where real-time take on fake news can be maintained. As in some states, if a fake news is tweeted, police immediately respond with a warning retweet. So our next discussion is based on this article which appeared on page 1 in the Hindu newspaper. Context of this article is that on the occasion of commemoration of 50 years of Project Tiger in Mysore, Prime Minister Narendra Modi released the figure of fifth cycle of India's tiger census, revealing that the tiger numbers have once again increased in the country. Also, the numbers are not strictly comparable as a key calculation to compute the maximum and minimum range of the tiger population is yet to be done. So in this regard, we will quickly look into the key findings and we will also go through some initiatives related to tiger conservation in India. This discussion is mainly important from the perspective of the prelims examination, as UPSC has been persistently asking questions based on initiatives and various tiger reserves in the country. Like this question based on largest area under critical tiger habitat came in year 2020, and this question based on M strips came in year 2017. So let's see important key findings with respect to fifth cycle of India's tiger census. Now according to it, the tiger population stands at 3,167 in the wild as of 2022. The animals population in the country has increased by 200 in the past 4 years. The tiger population has grown the most in the Shivalik Hills and the Gangetic floodplains, followed by Central India, Northeastern Hills, Brahmaputra floodplains and Sundarbans. So if there is any statement that tiger population has grown the most in the Brahmaputra floodplains, then that statement is incorrect because the tiger population has grown the most in the Shivalik Hills, then Gangetic floodplains, followed by Central India, Northeastern Hills, and then Brahmaputra floodplains. Next key finding is that there was a decline in the Western Ghats number, though major populations were said to be stable. Also, you should know that India is home to 75% of the world's tiger population in the 75th year of Indian independence. It is also a coincidence that the tiger reserves in India cover 75,000 square kilometers of land, and in the past 10 to 12 years, the tiger population in the country increased by 75%. Now, National Tiger Conservation Authority, it is a statutory body because it was constituted under the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. and it is headed by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So if there's any statement that NTCA is headed by Prime Minister of India, then that statement is incorrect. Now, important initiative related to tiger is Project Tiger, and this was launched in year 1973, and it is a 100% centrally sponsored scheme. Basically, it gives fund help to the tiger range states for in situ conservation of tigers in the chosen tiger reserves, and it aims to promote exclusive tiger agenda in the core areas of tiger reserves with inclusive people participation. The key objectives of Project Tiger is to guarantee a viable population of tigers for financial, scientific, aesthetic, social and ecological values. Another important objective is to limit the elements which lead to the reduction of tiger habitat. Then cite particular eco-development to decrease the dependency of local individuals and indigenous people on tiger reserve. Another important initiative related to tiger is Conservation Assured Tiger Standards. It is a set of criteria which allow tiger sites to check if their management will lead to successful tiger conservation. And as of 2021, 14 tiger reserves in India have received the accreditation of the Global Conservation Assured Tiger Standards. The next is T into 2 initiative. In this, 13 tiger range governments came together for the first time at the St. Petersburg Summit in the year 2010, where they committed to double the number of wild tigers by 2022. And India achieved its commitment to the St. Petersburg Declaration by doubling tiger population much in advance to the 2022 deadline. Now, current news is about 5th cycle of National Tiger Assessment. But in 4th cycle of National Tiger Assessment of 2018 and 19, data was collected using MSTRIPS, that is Monitoring System for Tigers' Intensive Protection and Ecological Status. This application greatly eased out analysis of large quantum of data that was collected. Now I guess now you can answer this previous year question that the term MSTRIPS is sometimes seen in news in the context of maintenance of tiger reserves. That is option B. Also in the same event, Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched International Big Cat Alliance, and the focus of the International Big Cat Alliance will be on the conservation of the world's 7 major big cats including tiger, lion, leopard, snow leopard, puma, jaguar and cheetah. And countries that are home to these cats will be part of this alliance, and its aim to curb poaching and illegal wildlife trade. So these are few initiatives related to tiger which are quite important for UPSC prelims examination. That's all for today. Stay tuned for more such updates.